Hi everyone, my name is Lotem. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Women on Stage for inviting me to be a keynote speaker on this wonderful conference. And in general, I'd like to thank Women on Stage for being such a wonderful initiative, promoting women in Israel and worldwide, really empowering us. So thank you for everything. And thanks again for having me. And before I jump into the topic of this conversation, I'd like to start with a sneak peek. Motivation. So a couple of months ago, we decided to release our B2C apps in Korean. Previously to that, our experience was available in English and partially in German. And we decided to expand to Korean as part of the Samsung organization and the larger Samsung vision. And we worked on this really, really hard and successfully released the app on time, with the highest quality and with users being very happy with it. However, we had a lot of learnings to do regarding the process. So as the product manager leading this adventure, I initiated a retrospective with our team, with myself also, and kind of decided to map out the caveats, the challenges that we met and did not expect. And this is going to be what I'm talking about in this conversation. I will tell you it's one of the coolest adventures I've been part of, so really worth to stay tuned. So first, let me start with introducing myself. I'll share my screen. Okay, great. So my name is Lotem Peled Cohen. My background is in natural language processing and machine learning. I have a master's from the Technion with several works that have been presented in conferences worldwide. I am a co-author on a book about statistical significance testing for NLP. If anyone's interested in learning more about that, I'm happy to elaborate offline. I began my career as a data scientist and then machine learning consultant and lecturer in multiple colleges. And at a certain point, I decided I want to become a machine learning oriented product manager. I had the feeling that with more and more machine learning products and features in the market, there's a lack of product managers that really speak the machine learning language. So that is what I wanted to do. And I became a product manager at Whisk, which is a Samsung Next company. And I'll elaborate a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides. More in general, I'm a huge advocate for women in tech. I love speaking in conferences like these. And in general, I love teaching and presenting. I see my specialty as communicating machine learning to non-tech individuals. So anything from marketing, management, business, sales, etc. And within machine learning, my main interests are medical AI, ethics in AI, and unsupervised learning in the aspect of utilizing small amounts of data to learn rather than big data, kind of more like how humans naturally learn. I am happily married with a wonderful dog called Juno, and we live in Tel Aviv. Okay, so what is Samsung Next and what is Whisk? Samsung Next is Samsung's department that specializes in software and ventures. Whisk has been a startup that was acquired by Samsung in March 2019. We're a really big team that is highly focused on R&D. We have multiple B2C apps that have a very high App Store rating. And part of our uniqueness is that we power the food experiences behind Samsung smart appliances. So Samsung has a smart refrigerator, smart oven, smart microwave, etc., that rely heavily on Whisk APIs, Whisk services, Whisk database, communities, etc. So when you open your Family Hub fridge, you can see our content, our shopping list, and a lot of things I will show you in the demo coming up. So we have grown to power about 800 million food interactions per month. And this comes from our B2C apps. It comes from our relations with global brands, grocers, retailers, creators, etc. And of course, with smart appliances in the home, even personal assistants such as Alexa. So let me give you the shortest demo of what is Whisk about. by showing you our web app. So Whisk, the Whisk experience starts with a home feed that offers you many options for content, communities, recipes. This is our recommendation system. These are some examples of what creators can do on Whisk. And the community is really a public collection of recipes that are curated by users worldwide. When it comes to recipes, one of our strengths is that you can bring a recipe from anywhere. So for example, let me take this pancake recipe from Tasty. And then when I add it to my recipe box, you can see that very easily the ingredients are parsed and matched to our database of ingredients. The title, ingredients, and description are presented separately. You can play around with the servings, and then you can very quickly add your ingredients to the shopping list. For certain markets out there, you can then check out, take your shopping list and really check out to any retailer that we work with, for example, Amazon Fresh. One of the other products that I'm leading at Whisk is our meal planner. So this is a weekly calendar in which you can easily plan your meals for the week with every recipe that you want. And you can see that some of these services are already available in Hebrew. For example, you can import from any website, starting from all recipes and ending in Nikki B, for example. So this is the Whisk experience very, very briefly. Okay, so getting back to the localization process, what is localization? So the definition is making something local in characteristics, which makes sense. We want to take our app, our experience, which is currently available in English, and really make it local for the various markets. And what you can see on the right is our plan for localization at Whisk. We are planning to expand to 3 new markets, which are Europe, Latin America, and Asia. In parentheses, you can see the individual language that we're planning to release in, so German, Italian, Spanish, etc. We are planning to do this by the end of this quarter, which is the end of March. And then the question is why? Why should we invest all of these time and effort? Which needles do we expect this to move with respect to the product? So first of all, more markets means more users, more retailer opportunities, and in the end, an opportunity for a higher revenue. So we expect this adventure to give us more users, so acquisition, as well as a higher revenue in potential. Since we are receiving a lot of requests from users worldwide to make this an international experience, we also expect it to make users happier, which we could see in App Store rating and a higher retention. And of course, this connects to the Samsung vision. Samsung sells their smart appliances worldwide, and there's really no reason that a user who has the smart refrigerator and lives in Germany, no reason for them not to be capable to play around with German recipes, add them to their shopping list, etc. So what am I going to talk about, or what do I expect you can walk away with? So I see this conversation as a to-do list, things not to forget when you decide to localize your app. So a bunch of choices you will have to make, which teams should you keep close, as well as some of our suggested solutions. So throughout this presentation, you will see some of the bullets will have a gray asterisk next to it. These are decisions that the product manager or the entire team will need to make throughout this process. So let's get started. When talking about localization or internationalization, a lot of people naturally think about translations. So the first question you may encounter is, why is this so complicated? The only thing you need to do is translate your app. No, and partially this is not wrong. Translation is a huge part of localization. And one of the biggest decisions you're going to have to make is, what is the translation service? So translation platforms are available by the thousands. Each and every one of them offers different features, different capabilities Can you upload screenshots for context? Because if the translators understand how your app looks, they may be able to translate it better. So those types of capabilities vary from service to service. Also, you need to keep in mind that this is an iterative process, right? So it's not only translating your app this one time. Every new feature that you will release needs to be localized. What you can see on the right is the translation service that we selected. Also, I'm happy to elaborate offline. And one of the biggest lessons that we learned from our Korea launch is the topic of string unification. So as you can imagine, the word recipe appears in our web app, iOS app, and Android app. Each one of these apps stores their strings in different files and maybe different formats as well. So when it comes the time to translate the app, every different platform, every different app uploads their strings in a different format. So potentially the word recipe could be translated 3 times by 3 separate translators. It needs to be QA'd 3 different times and we pay triple the price. So this is something we missed in the first time that we attempted to translate our entire app. And this time we selected a translation service that really allows for automatic string unification. So when we upload these 3 different formats of files, the service is able to detect the word recipe, match it between the 3 different platforms so that we can translate it only once, and then push the translations in the correct files and formats to each and every app. So this is a huge lesson, something to keep in mind. And this is a very short explanation about this problem. Feel free to ping me afterwards to talk about it a little bit more. Cool, we translated our app. This means that we're done, right? No, not really. We have just scratched the surface. Here are a couple more things we will need to consider. So marketing efforts. We're gonna enter a couple of new markets and we need to make ourselves known. And this is sometimes difficult when presenting a new product to a new market with a new language. You can sometimes get it wrong. So for example, what you can see here is when KFC decided to expand into China, they translated their famous slogan of finger licking good into eat your fingers off, which resulted in a lot of Chinese customers, potential customers, not taking them seriously. One of the other examples that I really like is the famous ad of got milk that got translated into are you lactating in Spanish. So another thing that could make the users not take you seriously. So make sure that your marketing translations capture the context and make sure that there is no slang in them. Very important. And of course, marketing efforts vary by country. For example, when we interviewed Korean users, they told us that online ads mean nothing to them. However, when celebrity chefs upload content and promote a certain app or service or brand or product, that's what's making Korean users go out and try this service. So maybe it makes sense for us to invest in that type of marketing in the Korean market. So this is a decision to make, research to do. And of course, there's another decision. And of course, there's another decision that you have to make about, are you going to translate all of your marketing assets? So you have emails, you have push notifications. Do you want to translate all of them? Because this means more money and more time. And after marketing efforts, we need to decide what about designs. So design assets is a general name for images, videos, GIFs, etc. And for example, you can see a GIF here that we show in our onboarding about, this is really about teaching users how to save a recipe and then adding it to your shopping list. Should we translate it? Should we translate every asset in the app? So this means every image that you have in the app that has text in it could potentially be translated. So onboarding images, App Store images, images from help pages, like you can see here, These are all decisions that you have to make. And of course, if you choose to translate all of them, this can affect your release time, your costs, and the weight of your app. So if every image is translated, your app may become much more heavy to download, which could result in users being less happy and a decreasing App Store rating. So those are things that you have to decide. And let's say that you decided, this is too much, I'm not going to translate all of the designs. Which images should be translated? So particularly, let me give an example of what we decided. In our localization efforts, we decided to focus on App Store images. And our thinking behind it is that when users look for an app like ours and they see these localized images on the App Store, it will make them more likely to download the app, check out the experience, and continue from there. So this is kind of where we are going. So let's say that our marketing efforts were successful. Users saw our marketing and our App Store localized images. They decided to try out our service. And so how many users like these are we expecting? Are there hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands? Each country varies by size. The sizes of the markets are very different. So how are we gonna get to this number of users that we are aiming for? This is where the growth team comes into effect. For example, working on App Store optimization or search engine optimization. I can tell you that the phrasing for meal planning in Portuguese, Mexican Spanish, European Spanish, all of them vary. It requires a lot of research to know which phrasing will be the most useful when it comes to our app being discovered first in search results, whether it's in search engines or in the App Store. And then one of the things you can do is kind of do an A/B testing on these optimization efforts. So for example, what we are going to do in this release is to try these growth efforts on 3 different markets, Brazil, Mexico, and Germany. And if we see that these markets really yield results, we may expand the App Store optimization and search engine optimization to other markets as well. So we acquired all of these users. How are we going to support them? So what is user support? What is customer support? It's really answering users' tickets, helping them, getting back to them on feedback, maintaining help articles, and those types of things. Super important, right? Now you have a bunch of users from Brazil. How are you going to help them when they have questions? So are you going to hire international customer success people or multilingual customer success representatives? Do you plan on translating all of your help desk articles? Again, more time, more money. So these are decisions to make with your customer success team. Make sure that they are aligned with your strategy, because this is not a decision that you can make alone. Coming to my favorite part of this challenge is, what is the effect on machine learning features? So starting with NLP capabilities, natural language processing will now need to happen in multiple languages. So as I've shown you in the demo, when a user imports a recipe, the recipe is parsed. This means that the title is understood, the ingredients are understood separately, the description is understood. This needs to happen in multiple languages. So it's a lot of work, as well as label prediction. As you can see in this image down below, our app knows to automatically detect from the text and from the ingredients certain labels. So for example, if the recipe is vegetarian, if the recipe is breakfast or dinner, or what is the cuisine, those types of things are automatically inferred from the text, and they will now need to happen for multiple languages. So this is a huge challenge that continues onto the search engine. So for example, when the user searches for the word pasta, do they expect Italian results in Italian? Do they expect results in English? How does the relevancy score changes for users from different countries? And how do we detect the language that the user uses? These are all things you have to take into consideration. So keep your machine learning lead very close to you in the process. And of course, there is the recommendation system. And nowadays, we are all familiar with recommendation systems, anything from Netflix to ASOS. In our case, really suggesting communities, suggesting recipes. And then the question is, how do we map a user's country and UX language to content? So one of my favorite examples is you have a user who lives in Canada, selected the UX language of Korean, but interact mainly with German recipes. Which content should you show them? So a lot of people will say, just wait and see what they interact with and then learn it automatically like a machine learning algorithm. That's true, but we have a cold start problem here, right? If the user is never exposed to recipes in German, how would we know that they want to interact with it? So this is a difficult cold start problem that we are working on a strategy for solving nowadays. So I hope that by now you've been able to kind of understand how complex this adventure is. And again, we are just scratching the surface. This is like a multi-headed beast where you chop off one head and 3 heads pop up. So every question you answer, you get 5 more questions you need to answer. For example, how do we conduct user interviews with users worldwide? What is the demography in each market so that we know how to market to them? What about localizing the experience? So for example, we have buttons in the app with very short words in English, like add. And then when you translate them to German, it becomes a super long word. How do you make sure that the app is not broke, the experience is not broken? Of course, how do you curate content? So we have communities and recipes mainly in English, right? Because this is the majority of our users. How do you make sure that when a user from Germany enters the app, there are German communities, German recipes, many, many things to consider. So to summarize, even if it sounds intimidating, this is by far one of the coolest products adventure I've been part of. It requires such elaborate thinking about everything. It's a really good experience in leadership, as I see it. So here are a couple of the most important points to note. In gray, you can see some of the decisions that we have made. So first of all, user interviews, not to forget them. Choose a good translation service that answers your needs. Make decisions about design assets and marketing materials to translate. Of course, incorporate your design team, marketing team in those decisions. Same goes for growth and customer success. And keep your machine learning lead very, very close to you. You will need them in multiple decisions. So thank you for listening. I am more than happy to elaborate on any of these topics offline. And again, thank you for inviting me to be a keynote speaker in this conference. Thank you so much and have a great listen to the next lectures in this conference.